horrified. To kill his own beloved children, what a terrible price to pay. But he remembered how faithful Johannes had been ready to give his own life for those he served, and he steeled himself, drew his sword, and lopped off his 2 children's heads in a moment.
Philip Pullman, were fairy tales part of your childhood?
Yes, they must have been, because as soon as I remember them, they were familiar. So I must have heard them at some early stage.
Do you remember feeling in any way that this was a dark world?
No. So either I was a nasty little brute, or I had fairy tales that had been sort of bowdlerised. It was a world that was pleasant to enter and funny to enter and enjoyable to enter, but it wasn't a dangerous world, no.
So now you have, in a sense, exposed the heart of the Grimm brothers' stories to be quite a dark and dangerous place. But what is the value, do you think, of the fairy tale in the 21st century?
It's manifold. There are all sorts of reasons why fairy tales are important and interesting and valuable to us. One is that they engage with really deep human themes. The difficulties of being a step-parent, the trauma of being hungry and unable to find anything to eat, the thrill and excitement of being young and adventurous and finding your way in the world. These are things that the fairy tale deals with. And it deals with them in a way that's unlike the modern novel or the modern short story, which are very interested in psychology and the interiority of human experience. Fairy tales have no interior space at all. They're just about events.
What do you think about the fact that kids could be reading this or having it read to them, and then everywhere around them they see the brutality of IS and so forth? We are living in a particular time, are we not, for this?
We're living in a time that's much worse for that sort of thing than it was when I was a child, where the extraordinary brutality and horror that's being visited on people by Islamic State, for example, well, that seemed part of an ancient medieval world when I was a child. It wouldn't happen, but it is now happening. But it does provide a different sort of context. And yeah, we have to be aware of this. Children need reassurance that the world they can enter imaginatively is a safe one. It's full of danger, yes, but with their own bravery or ingenuity or with the help of good friends or with their own fidelity and or whatever, they'll come through and it'll be all right in the end. That's what fairy tales tell us, and it may be not true, but I'd rather have a child give the opportunity to feel that and see that and sort of process that than not. She made him lie down at the foot of her bed, but still he said, let me up, I'm just as tired as you." "Oh, for goodness sake," she said, and picked him up and put him at the far end of her pillow. "Closer, closer," he said. But that was too much. In a flash of anger, she scooped up the frog and threw him against the wall.
I remember The Frog Prince as a story which I read a lot as a child, but I don't ever remember the princess throwing the frog against the wall.
No, in some stories she does that. In the Grimm's one, she throws him against the wall. In the British version of it, she cuts his head off. The kiss, which is what everybody remembers, if you say, what do you remember about that story? It's of the princess kissing the frog and him becoming a prince. Well, I don't know where that came from, but it seems to be modern. But throwing him against the wall, no, that's something that children don't often meet in your little book of fairy tales that you give them for Christmas. Bit of a shock, perhaps.
So here you are, as a writer, putting yourself in the straitjacket of rewriting famous fairy tales and doing it very sparely. And what was that discipline like?
It's great. Because, for one thing, I was spared the burden of invention. The story's there, I didn't have to make it up. I just had to take it and tell it as clearly as I could. There's a wealth of wonderful stories which could be the basis for all sorts of other things. And so if your invention is failing, as invention does fail from time to time, go and steal a fairy tale. They're out of copyright apart from anything else.
Time for Philip to get back to invention. But before we part, he reveals a little bit of real-life magic.
Feels like a moment of revelation.
I haven't looked at this for years.
It's the first draft of his Dark Materials, written 21 years ago, warts and all.
Yes, it's all there, including my notes.
Oh my goodness. So nobody's seen this before. This is
Probably not.
Again, Lyra looked around the table, expecting a comment or a disdainful look, but there was none. And you didn't put that in.
No. Nope.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much.
That's
Very nice to meet you. Lovely to meet you.